So maybe I should start with the introduction. Yes? No?
Yeah, I think we should start.
Okay. Okay, so this introduction, the panelists probably know this, but perhaps for the audience, just to give a background on the subject that we're talking about today. India has the second largest number of internet users in the world currently. While digital technologies and services have the power to transform people's lives, it needs connectivity to leverage such opportunities. Despite the large-scale progress in connecting large sections of the population, the digital divide persists across age, spatiality, gender, literacy, and income levels. These gaps are most visible across marginalized and vulnerable groups in the country. Thus, meaningful connectivity for everyone becomes imperative in such a scenario. This objective needs to be supported through holistic policy frameworks and a multi-stakeholder approach towards providing last-mile connectivity to each individual. This must include, but not be limited to, affordable and user-friendly devices, low-cost services, ubiquitous and universal connectivity. The rapid expansion of the digital economy is leading to rapid economic growth, expanding social mobility and opportunities, and enabling easy access to government information and services. Therefore, the objectives of ensuring no one is left behind in accessing these benefits by providing last mile connectivity becomes of utmost importance. And just to introduce, I think we have almost everyone here now. So, my name is Karishma. I I was born and raised in the US. I moved to India roughly 4.5 years ago, and I was covering technology at the Indian Express for about 3.5 years. Did a bunch of freelance journalism in between, where I also continued covering technology, and am currently on a Fulbright research project, which is looking at different types of tech and digital work in smaller towns in India. To introduce the group that we have with us, Sir Sunil Kumar Singhal is an Indian Telecommunications Service ITS officer of the 1992 batch, with more than 29 years of experience in telecommunication and broadcasting sectors. In his present capacity as Deputy Director General of Access Services, he is heading the Access Services Division of the DOT, the Department of Telecommunication, dealing with policy-related work, issuing telecom licenses, numbering plan, codes, rollout obligations of TSPs, etc. Prior to this, he has served in various capacities like DDG Data Services and TRAI Advisor, and has been instrumental in handling the policy, licensing, and regulatory issues related to telecommunication and broadcasting services. During the last decade, he played an instrumental role in the formulation of the National Digital Communication Policy of 2018, reviewing the policy framework for the proliferation of broadband services, addressing the issues in faster creation of telecommunication infrastructure, expansion of FM radio broadcasting services, and the digitization of the cable TV networks in the country. Do we have is TV Ramachandran sir in the stage? Can you have him come into the stage? I think he's trying to speak.
He is there on the stage.
Is he there on the stage? Okay, I can't see him.
I can see him, but his
No,
video.
Professor Rekha, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
Are
you.
because I lost my connection for a while.
Okay.
So that's why I'm off my camera.
Oh, okay. Got it. Got it. Okay, great. Great. So Mr. TV Ramachandran is currently the president of Broadband India Forum, the global advisor for the Future Tech Panel of IET, the Institution of Engineering and Technology London, and the founder and CEO of Advisor at TVR, a consultancy in the ICT and TMT space. Professor Rekha Jain is the former professor and executive chair of IIMA IDEA Telecom Center of Excellence at the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, and senior visiting fellow at iCareer. And Osama Manzur, sir, who will be joining us shortly, is the founder and director of Digital Empowerment Foundation. He's an Ashoka Senior Fellow, a British Evening Scholar, and an IVLP Fellow. Recently, the G20 had also endorsed DEF's work for digital and infrastructure and digital transformation. So the setup that I was focusing on today is I have a list of questions that I can direct to any one individual, but If anybody else in the audience wants to chime in at any point in time, feel free to do so. So I was considering first focusing on the improvements that we've made over the past decade or so in terms of last mile connectivity. So Professor Rekha Jain, ma'am, can you describe sort of what improvements we've seen in the last decade in terms of last mile connectivity, and what were the primary catalysts, what led to those improvements that we've seen in the last decade? Ma'am, your speaker is off.
Karishma, is it okay for me to share the screen because there are some data points?
That would be
and
great. Sure.
Yeah. Just let me see how I share the screen. Here, share. Yeah.
Great.
Just get it in show mode. Yeah, just 1 second. Okay, so what I did was, I mean, we didn't coordinate, Karishma, but it so happened I wanted to look at this journey. So here we are. Look at this. Can you all see this map?
Yes.
India, yeah. Now this shows the network coverage as of today, that is as of October 22nd or something, of Airtel. And the darker points, these are the 4G coverage, and these dark purple sort of points, very few of them, they are 4G plus, so to say. But so you can see, and I looked at Jio and I looked at BSNL and Vodafone Idea coverage. They seem to overlap, the map just becomes denser. So it's very clear to me who are the unconnected, all these white spaces are obviously the unconnected regions here, right? And let me go on to some of the rural urban tele-density. I mapped it from 96 to 22, but what is relevant is really the last 5 years if we were to look at it. Now, this is obviously, you can see that there is a gap between rural and urban. This is the dark blue line on top is urban, and this light blue line is the rural. And this triangle points, which are triangles, is the gap. Now, what is heartening is this gap is decreasing somewhat as we go towards 21, 22. Until then, even the gap was widening, and that obviously is an area of concern because, as Karishma just mentioned, internet access is a driver of socioeconomic growth, and this widening gap also shows widening disparities in economic and social opportunities. What I had was internet today we have, I think so this is rural India's drive the internet usage. It's actually not a correct title. But if I look at it percentage wise, the internet penetration is been growing from, in urban areas from 250 million. But if you look at the proportion of population, it's about 30% urban and 70% rural, or maybe 67% rural and 23% urban. So the number of urban internet users are 341, and the number of rural internet users are 351, and that is why they say rural India's drive the internet usage. But if I look at proportion of the population, obviously, which is the better metric, it's only 37% internet access. Now, and some other data points, because I believe that unless you measure what you're doing, you cannot really manage any activity. And what gets measured gets done is a very popular, management statement we keep making. So question is, who is unconnected? Now, Karishma mentioned the gaps, rural, urban, gender, socioeconomic, age, education, all of that. But besides that, if I were to look at the access gap in terms of what is available throughout the world with what is available in India, the broadband internet speeds, Delhi, it is 128th rank. And this is the Ookla speed test index. And Mumbai is at 140 out of 180 cities that they looked at. And this was a download speed of 18.89 Mbps against the highest download speeds in Qatar cities of around 160 Mbps, in Shanghai 160 Mbps. And rural smartphone access, because Karishma, you also mentioned that. So during the COVID years, it certainly did increase because of the need for children to access education and for adults to do some online work. Now, so there is this wide gap we can see, and government has tried very hard to bridge this gap through a very ambitious program called initially the National Optical Fiber Network, and later it was called BharatNet. Now,
Ma'am, your slides are not moving properly. Are you changing the slide?
no, that's all. That's the data I have where we are. I'm not, that's all. Is that fine? Are you seeing this rural India's drive the internet usage? Yeah,
Yes.
that's all
Yeah,
the slides I
yeah.
have. Yeah, I will stop sharing
Right,
the
right.
screen now. So this was just to give the data.
And since you've ended on BharatNet, that was a question, Professor, I was going to ask you later.
Okay,
But
so I'll stop. Is it okay? So what helped us get there? I think government's policy of driving mobile operators growth through better licensing regime, through better regulatory measures of tariff deregulation, letting the market play it out, and competition in the sector. I think these have contributed to this growth, and this rural mobile broadband is, whatever numbers we are seeing there, is an outcome of these largely, I would say largely the outcomes of what the rural mobile has gone into these areas through the operations of private operators. BSNL has some part to play, but not really very significant. And this has been because of the policy and regulatory regime relating to making more spectrum available, making it available in a fair and a just manner through the auctions. And though one can, there are many issues with the way auctions could be designed better, but I leave it at that because that's not what we are discussing here. Karishma, do you want me to go further or should I stop?
I think I think I'll ask you about BharatNet in a bit more time, but I'll
That's
just
right
move on.
now. Is that enough or would you like me to
That's
cover
great.
anything?
That's perfect, Professor. Sunil sir, I wanted to ask you about the USO fund and how that you think has improved or helped as well with last mile access. What has been the role of the USO fund? And if you'd like to add anything else as your beginning words, you can feel free to do so. I think you're on mute, sir.
Yeah, thanks a lot for inviting me in this discussion. And thanks to Professor Rekha Jain for setting the context for the discussion. We have seen that the way the internet connectivity progress we have seen in last decade, and the USOF has contributed in it in two ways primarily. One is that the USOF fund is being used to connect the district headquarters with the block headquarters, where the private capital investment may not be commercially feasible. So the government decided that let us create that fiber infrastructure, and then either the existing service providers or the new entrepreneurs can use that connectivity to provide the broadband services in rural and remote areas. And the second important role which has been played by the USOF in last 2 decades is providing the mobile broadband services or wireless broadband services in areas where the private TSPs or the commercial TSPs, should I say, are unable to reach because of their own techno-commercial reasons. It includes even the areas where we call them LWE areas or left-wing extremism areas. And once we have now achieved some sort of 98% kind of population coverage for the 4G in the country, the government decided to saturate the coverage as far as the 4G is concerned. So the final project for wireless broadband has come, where government has identified some 28,000 villages where still the 4G wireless connectivity is missing, and that project is being rolled out. So if we see the outcome of these, then the coverage in the remotest areas of Northeast, all 8 states, the LWE areas, the villages in the Odisha, Bihar, the complete belt which Professor Rekha Jain depicted in the map of India, where the density of those red dots was relatively poor, is being served through the USOF schemes and USOF projects. And that is helping us in increasing the broadband penetration or the mobile connectivity in these regions also. And that is one of the reasons that we see that now the gap between the urban and rural tele-density as well as the penetration is reducing. I just want to share here another example which we have as a DOT tried using the USOF fund scheme and the BharatNet project, where recently in last 2-3 months, we encouraged the local entrepreneurs to take the connectivity from BharatNet and start providing the services in the rural and very remote areas of the country, which are located in eastern UP, Bihar, etc., where until now there was a perception that there may not be enough demand for FTTH in the rural areas. But when we briefed those, we call them as a Udyamis, local Udyamis, we provided some sort of support to them. The CP, which is a one-time investment by the consumer, that investment was subsidized by the government, and the monthly charges were fixed at a reasonable price of around 375 rupees. We saw a large amount of demand and uptake in the FTTH connectivity. And in just 2 months, in 4 blocks alone, more than 40,000 FTTH has been put through. And still a lot of demand is there, and that converts into about, if we see in terms of the number of percentage of households got connected using the FTTH, that is more than 15%. So that is crossing in some way even the urban areas. So that is the latent demand we can see for the broadband, which could be fulfilled by the USOF. And probably this demand experience will now drive the private investment also in those areas, because there was a perception that there may not be demand, so why to invest? Now, once the government proves that demand is there, the business case is there, now only the effort is required. So that way we are trying to drive through USOF the various schemes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So we've discussed a lot of the sort of policy and regulatory space. I'm wondering, Osama sir, since you've had a long experience working on the ground, as well as sort of with the international forums such as ITU and UN, what do you see as some of the key ground level challenges in achieving universal digital connectivity in India? What are sort of the ground level concerns that we should keep in mind here as you travel around the country? Osama sir, are you there?
He's there, all right. I saw him. Maybe a bandwidth problem like I had.
Okay, maybe a network problem. Well, we can move on to the next question. Oh, Osama said.
Yeah, no, I was trying to unmute, but unable to unmute. Perhaps.
You're frozen.
Yeah, your connectivity is not great, which is ironic. Maybe we can move on to the next question and see if you come back. Or maybe turn off your camera, Osama said. No, we're unable to hear you, unfortunately. It's
Control of
No, we
you.
can't hear.
no, we can't hear him. Okay, TV Ramachandran said, what about infrastructure deployment? In terms of business models, when we look at
Am I audible?
no, unfortunately not very audible.
There's a lot of jitter and shakiness
Yeah, can you
in the voice.
It's been in and out. Maybe you can disconnect and reconnect and see if that helps. So TV Ramachandran said, I wanted to ask you about infrastructure deployment, the sort of physical infrastructure and how to think about the business models that will work to provide good quality and resilient connectivity in the last mile. And feel free to add any other initial points if you'd like.
Thank you. Thank you, Karishma. It's great to be here with Mr. Singhal and Professor Jain and Osama, all great friends of mine. And I have already heard Professor Rekha and Singhal sir. They made excellent points. And thank you for the question asked of me of infrastructure. And with your kind permission, I may stray a bit into aspects which they were talking about, which I could hear, but I could not address because at that time, due to my connectivity problem at the time.
Sure.
So, firstly, I would like to say that about investment. See, infrastructure in the case of broadband is not a case like Henry Ford. Henry Ford famously said, set up the factory and the customers will come. It doesn't work with broadband. It doesn't work for broadband infrastructure. It is very important, yes, the supply side. And I find generally we tend to be lost on the supply side. Too much discussion on the supply side. And unless you have content flowing through the pipes, broadband pipes, you get nowhere. My submission is that one needs to take a holistic view of what is being unreached, what is being unconnected. It has to be broadband connected in a rich sense. High-speed broadband, of course, but with content in it. Like, for example, today, BharatNet, it has reached more than 100,000 villages, but not very high utilization. So that is because pipes are empty. There's no adequate regional content, relevant content, skilling maybe in some areas. It's there in patchy areas where differently, but we have to look at each solution, and what Mr. Singhal said is perfect. See, there was an impression that, okay, in many of these places, there'll be no takeoff of the supply is there. But see what is found, that in UP with local entrepreneurs, village level entrepreneurs, they're able to address it and start taking off. So you have to make relevant solutions. That's my first observation. Second observation is that we need to take a holistic view of inclusion, of broadband inclusion properly. I don't know whether the digital divide so significantly reducing in Professor Rekha's graph denotes tele-density reduction or net connectivity reduction. Because I'd be surprised if it is net connectivity. Professor Rekha?
This is just purely the data from TRAI, which collects data only on the supply side. Yeah. In fact, I was going to make that point that you are making, but in a different context. So please go ahead. It's just the supply.
What I believe is it's the aspect of talking about the normal teledensity, which is just fixed line connectivity based, age old. I think that is not relevant for modern era. We have to talk of broadband connectivity, not mere broadband connectivity at 256 kbps or dial-up. You need high-speed broadband. So, and when you do that, you have to talk of it in a holistic sense. Are we reaching the unreached in terms of not just the urban and rural? Because in urban areas also there are many areas of people who are unserved or poorly served, and vice versa in the rural. So you have to look at that in a holistic sense. In the rural areas, my data tells me that nearly 70%, 69% are probably unconnected to the net. Whereas in urban areas, it might be of the order of 60% or so. So the question is, how do we address that? We have to think of that, and not just the number of connects, Karishma. How do you see that there is parity, gender parity in connection? There is enough data in India to show, the recent Oxfam report also shows, in the pandemic that got worse, women got more disadvantage compared to men. And another area which we completely forget, and which is a passionate favorite with me, is that of persons with disabilities. There's a very large percentage of population with disabilities in India. And they need special ICT devices. You can't just say, I've given connection and then go away. They can't use it. How many of our sites are accessible to the PWD population? Persons with disabilities population? Very few. There are very few conferences which are done with them in mind. So what's the use of connectivity if it does not, and it's not that these people can't do a great job. They can. There is enough data to show that in cases where they are specially catered to, their productivity is much better than normal. So we have to look at persons with disabilities. We have to look at gender, the less income versus more income, all these things. So the haves and have-nots of broadband connectivity are becoming more and more significant. And that is why I'm saying investment is required in all those areas, not just to make a supply line, but investment for appropriate regional content, for skilling. How many of them are skilled? So these things, there's a very long haul ahead of us. Not that it can't be done. I think we are all there. And we talked about solutions to reach the customer in the rural and other difficult to access. I don't have to depend on optic fiber today. See, everybody thinks, oh, optic fiber is going to be hell to get there, digging. Oh, no. Today, there are so many solutions. Today, there is Wi-Fi PM1E, which can be used in certain cases for broadband connectivity. There is a famous PTOC solution, which has been demonstrated in Langkawi, Malawi, Malaysia airport. For 20 kilometers they could run with that. And you know what's PTOC? That's a special solution which they have in US, one party, and that can work on anything from 20 gigahertz to 100 gigahertz. So that is available. You've got other solutions also, like for example, free space optics. Free space optics, even DOT is experimenting with it. Defense is using it, trying it out, and that can be used. So unless we bring in alternatives, it becomes very difficult. And see, we got very, very tough solutions to overcome in rolling out fiber with the several local authorities and with the federal structure we have. But once you have competition in place with other solutions, probably they'll come to the table and begin to talk. So
Thank you, sir. Osama sir, do you want to try speaking once and see if it's better? No, unfortunately
Yeah,
not.
ca-
it's a pity. He has always some very good things to say.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
definitely have questions for you, but I think it might be difficult to hear you.
Mhm.
my-
No chance.
No. Um, so I wanted to pick up on TV Ramachandran's point, especially on the gender divide. So maybe Rekha ma'am, if you'd like to take this question. Looking at the latest data of NFHS, it shows that less than a third of women in India have ever used the internet. So what are the major impediments that we have to bridging the digital gender divide? And what can be done? What are some solutions you think for the digital gender divide that we should look at?
So, Karishma, thank you for, I mean, I thought Osama may be better positioned to answer that, but unfortunately, yeah. So, see, one of the points that when we talk of, addressing this divide, as Mr. Ramchandran said, and you mentioned right in the beginning as well, Karishma, it is not just an infrastructure divide, it is a divide, it's a device divide,
oh,
it's a
oh,
education divide and all of
oh,
that, plus it's a social divide, uh, and therefore addressing this cannot be from one department. And I think the way we have gone around addressing the question of digital divide has been, DOT has taken a lead and it has a certain way of thinking that OFC is the best thing because we must give 100 Mbps connectivity, which I think we must. Why not? But my point is, why not a bouquet of solutions, as Mr. Ramchandran just said, VBAT, free space optics, we aren't even trying it on a pilot basis. Whereas I know Andhra Pradesh government has done free space optics in some of their rural connectivity projects. But at the national level, it's not a part of the policy. Of course, that has nothing to do with the gender divide. Now, here, are we leave? So, I think this gender divide is a question of a larger social structure, that even if you were to give smartphones in a dedicated way through SHGs or any such structures for women, self-help groups and so on, how would they get taken over by the males in the society? Because a smartphone is a device that it doesn't stick to you, anyone can use it. And therefore my concern is really, unless there is a larger milieu in which the social empowerment of women happens, or I think one of the things could be SHGs is a very potent way, because you do have SHGs functioning in many parts of the country, though not all. So our solutions can't be one policy for all. We can't just say SHGs. Now, for me, the model of implementing a large scale program like this is the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, which was under the ownership of Ministry of Rural Development, but not under the Ministry of Roads, because the government felt it's the user departments which should drive this. So nowhere do I see in all this addressing the gender divide or income divide a group of departments and ministries coming together to solve this problem. Because obviously each of these departments is limited by their background, their legacy, their objectives and so on to address some part of the divide. But the sum of the parts cannot lead to the whole solution. So to me, you have to work with NGOs, you have to work, and this has to be done at scale. It just can't be we've done it in 100 villages or 50 villages, 1,000 villages. We need 6 lakh villages in which this happens. So to me, it is the models that need reworking. And I think a plethora of, and I don't know, DOT working separately, METI working separately, even there, CSCs don't talk to each other. I don't know. I don't get consistent data. So I think that's an important part as far as I'm concerned. Though it doesn't answer the gender equality question in totality, but I wasn't even prepared for it.
And Osama sir, if you'd like to type out.
But can I, Karishma, I have done some analysis. Can I just spend some time on it?
Sure. Let me.
Am I audible?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, you are. Hello?
Oh, okay, let him.
Okay, I just got a emergency Wi-Fi
Oh,
for
good.
Oh,
somehow.
good. See,
Okay.
Wi-Fi always saves you, Osama.
See, so it was nice to hear all the expected voices. So as long as I'm audible, let me just put couple of points. Sorry, Professor Rekha ji, मैं जरा बोल
That's
लेता हूँ.
okay. That's okay. You are in an emergency situation.
So it is the same situation that our 400 to 500 million people are. Okay, so my point that I want to keep here when we talk about last mile connectivity, it is important that we understand that if we are making connectivity not available to 100%, then we cannot also make digital policy on the basis of 100% availability. Right. So it is very important that, let's say, if whether it's health access or food access or any access that we are making, where we are making it mandatory for authentication through internet or through digital, which is only dependent on connectivity, it is important that we realize that is this connectivity also available to the masses and correlate and react accordingly. That's very important. Unless we know the emergency situation or the necessary situation of the unconnected people's dependency on connectivity, we may not be able to realize that how fast it should have been done, how much in hindsight it should have been done in past, rather than planning in the next 10 years or 20 years that ultimately the connectivity will reach to the last mile connectivity, or it is based on the challenges of innovation, or it is based on the challenges of alternative connectivity. If it is based on alternative connectivity, then I should have an alternative policy also, that okay, if I don't have an authentication, then you accept something else. So this is very important, that when we correlate connectivity as a human rights infrastructure access with policies and availability. So if the telecom policy is, if we are making, let's say we are making a policy in the food department or Ministry of Food or Rural Development, that okay, authenticate. I mean, now in NREGA it has been mandatory. It has been mandated that you have to do a on ground attendance through a smartphone through an NREGA app. Imagine a worker working on the ground.
Lost you. Osama?
Sorry?
At a very critical moment, but I think his is like show and tell.
Hello.
He is an
There you
exotic
are. We hear you.
Pondicherry,
We can
he's
hear
in
you.
Pondicherry.
Yeah. So no, I am in Panchakani. So the point I'm trying to make is that so just relate the last mile connectivity with this situation. I am an NREGA worker. I am in a village. I am digging a hole or I am digging a field, and I am supposed to mark my attendance through a smartphone app, which is dependent in real time with photograph. How can I do that? That's a rule. If the connectivity is not available. So before making this rule, have we connectivity is not available there? The last mile connectivity is challenging. So it is very important. This is not one number or two number ke ek gaon chhoot gaya hai ya do gaon chhoot gaya. No. out of 250,000 villages, I mean panchayats, most of them are unconnected. Even if we know that BharatNet claims 125,000 or 150,000 panchayat to be connected, but functionally they are not connected. The functionality of that last mile Wi-Fi or connectivity is not happening. The three danda that we can see is non-functional. So it is very important that when we are talking about last mile connectivity, we must ask ourselves a question: is this mandatory for certain human rights? Is this mandatory for certain right to entitlements, right to food, right to access to information, right to access to education? You know, for example, in COVID, we announced that everybody can access education through online. How can we make that announcement without having connectivity available to the ground, or even the device available to the ground? That's the one aspect. The second aspect, which is the sub aspect, is that when we talk about last mile connectivity, we must talk about last mile meaningful connectivity. It cannot be just connectivity. For example, I was connected with you, I was hearing all of you, but you were not hearing me. That is not meaningful connectivity. Right?
Sir, can you add anything about the gender divide as well? What are the challenges for the gender divide? What are solutions?
That is another that is adding to the layer of unconnectivity or the exclusion, because 3/4 or perhaps 2/3 of the genders are never connected, you know, on the internet, and they are half the population of the country. And in the rural areas, they are the largest working force on the field, in the agriculture field, in SHG groups, in micro entrepreneurs, in nano entrepreneurs. They need connectivity, but it is not. It is not available to them. So it is also supposed to be, you know, gender inclusive, and also the last mile connectivity should be seen from the meaningful connectivity and from the gender lens also, gender inclusion lens.
Have you seen any solutions that you think are particularly effective, either on the last mile or gender specifically? Which ground?
For example, mesh network is very good an alternative. PM Vani is part of that. PM Vani is a very good alternative. But we are somehow unable to exercise PM Vani in an entrepreneurial manner at a mass scale adoption for last mile connectivity. To make PM Vani successful, we need to make the last mile connectivity available by the BharatNet at a panchayat level, like a wholesale. You know, I should go as a local person in the panchayat and they should give me a pipe. Go and connect yourself. Easily available. Then PM Vani will be successful, because PM Vani actually decentralizes licenses. We don't need a license anymore. It allows anybody to take connectivity and buy connectivity and sell connectivity. But how can I buy and sell if I don't even know that easily it is not available out of the rack? So PM Vani is a great, if you read the G20 case study, G20 endorsement of the case study, our DF model and the PM Vani model has been adopted by G20. Incidentally, G20 is also government of India's, you know, हमारे भारत के लिए बहुत बड़ी बात है कि we are now presidency with G20. And G20 has endorsed the case study of mesh network and community networks by DF and PM Vani. Now it is a matter of pride for us, but at the same time, we have to convert the last mile connectivity through PM Vani exercisable and doable, like a Fortune ki dukaan. हम दुकान में गए, कुछ भी खरीद लिया. Exactly like the way we need to have last mile connectivity available by the panchayat on the last mile, available to any entrepreneur or anybody. He should go and buy like the way you buy a retail counter से जैसे आप connectivity खरीदते हैं. और आप लेके घर चले जाओ अपने से. You do it. You take, school can buy, panchayat can buy, Anganwadi can buy, local entrepreneur can buy, SHG group can buy, Asha worker can buy, anybody can buy, but make it available, easily available.
Yes. Sir, I hope you're able to stay with us. I hope you don't disappear. I think TV Ramachandran sir also has something to add to what you're saying. Please go.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Karishma. Thank you, Osama. That is a brilliant point you brought in. which was mentioned indirectly as Wi-Fi, PM-WANI Wi-Fi. That's a unique solution, Karishma, which India has in the global arena, and we are not using it for simple reasons like you're making it unworkable in cost. How? You will say that regulator cannot give the cost. The entrepreneur, the local business model must do it. Yes, you're very right. But today, adjacent to the PM-WANI Wi-Fi, I might be a customer, retail customer, TV Ramachandran, taking a connection, broadband connection, and that is maybe 300 rupees a month, 400 rupees a month, less like that. But the PM-WANI store or outlet is being asked to take bandwidth at the ILL rates, which are lakhs of rupees for a year or thousands of rupees, totally unworkable models. So we are rendering them unviable. We need to make what was said first, I think, by either Rekha ji or somebody, that we need to give a workable tariff model like affordable rates for the PM-WANI operators, because that is what is going to make connectivity happen. Today, Osama got connected only because of Wi-Fi, not because of other solution. That's absolute proof for you.
Right.
I am connected on Wi-Fi.
Yeah. I think
Average established speed by Rekha Jain ji last year in a study, India, you were getting speeds of 30 mh.
Sir, I'm sorry to cut you off. We actually will have to wrap up soon. Rekha ma'am, you can just spend maybe 1-2 minutes and then I'll let Sunil sir say anything if he needs to.
The point about BharatNet, whatever the business models, policy we adopt, the net result is we started in 2011, we are in 2022. 11 years down, we have only 6,302 gram panchayats on Wi-Fi. And as you just saw, how important Wi-Fi is. And data used in these Wi-Fi, in these GPs is just 1,920 terabytes, which comes to 15 users per month each GP. If we are to assume they are using data at the same rate as others are. 20 GB per month or 18 GB per month. Now, this is pathetic, if you're connecting only 6,302 gram panchayats with Wi-Fi. So this is my point. Why are we not measuring? Why don't we come up with a measurement system on all dimensions? All countries have these kind of measurement systems. Unless you measure, you do not know where you're going. On all the dimensions, we can have a, policy regarding that. That's all. Thank you, Karishma, for including me. Thank you.
Osama sir, before I let you say your last point, I know you wanted to add something. Sunil sir, do you have any last words? We have to wrap up soon.
Yeah, I just want to touch upon some of the important aspects which have been brought out by the panelists, and I agree with some of those points, that we have to look the problem holistically from supply side as well as demand side, and the content is the king. However, we are fortunate enough that today the technology has made the content democratic, and that is the reason we are seeing the demand in rural, remote, urban, all kind of geographical settings. And as far as the mediums of connectivity in the last mile are concerned, I can say that the DOT is trying to promote all kind of medium connectivities, whether it is a fiber, cellular, Wi-Fi, satellite, FWA, cable TV, because we believe that India has such large and diverse population that no one technology can fit for all. And that is why we leave it to the market forces that wherever it is possible, whatever technology suits best to those market conditions, probably the demand is required to be fulfilled according to those. As far as probably that is the reason that the government came out with the Digital India program in 2015, where in addition to the connectivity, all aspects of digitization were brought under the one program, and then multiple ministries are driving those programs. So I see the benefits of that, but still I agree that we have to move a lot. It is correct that BharatNet has not lived up to the expectations, but the way in last 6 months the decisions has been taken, the way the uptime performance of the BharatNet has improved, the way the new models are being tried, taking help of the local entrepreneurs, I am hopeful that in next 1 year or so, we will be able to provide much better connectivity even in the BharatNet covered areas. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Osama, just a quick last point, please.
Okay, no, I just want to say that Wi-Fi is a subset of backhaul, right? If I don't have a backhaul, I have only intranet Wi-Fi. So, but that is an opportunity that the backhaul should be retail-wise or wholesale available on demand by the people at each and every point of, panchayat or wherever it is available. I think after that, or everybody will be able to take it. The only thing that we need is a strong policy of saying that BharatNet should be available on demand for the people to buy off the rack, and all the other ISPs also for anybody and everybody. Then you will see PM Wani will make it success. The ball will be in the hands of the people. They will take it. We don't need too many things. I mean, you allow the bill to be made by the people at the last mile. You just provide it to make it happen by them. That's all I'm trying to say.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm sure we could continue talking about this for much longer. I, for one, have learned a lot in this session. I hope the audience members did as well. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I appreciate you taking your time. Admin, is there anything else to say? I think
I think it is
we're
fine.
okay.
Thank
We are
you.
actually
Thank
on a
you.
time constraint, so yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you, Karishma and IIGF for
Thank
creating
you.
this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Karishma.
you.
You
Thank
did
you,
a
Mr.
good job.
Singhal.
Thank
Thank
you.
Professor
You did a
Ratan.
very good
Thank you,
job of
Osama.
integrating all the important points. So thank you.
Yes. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.